Welcome to Fragments of Silicon, where our usual voice is probably overslept or is getting ready for his day. All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your the Daylight Interviews. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me is Petty. Alex, like I said, seems to be indisposed right now. He'll probably slip in sometime during the broadcast, as he sometimes does. But with that out of the way, we wish to welcome Ari and Jaakko from Kiwi / VRKiwi.
Hello, nice to be here.
Hello.
Hello.
It's good to have you. Right, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studio, and all that noise. And we do this by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Right. That's a big question. When I was a kid, my uncle had a Commodore 64. I think I was 5 years old when I played a Donald Duck game on it. We were visiting my grandma over in the boonies, basically. And I enjoyed it. And then when I grew up, I went through, I think Super Nintendo was my big console. And then I got into PC gaming pretty quick because consoles are quite expensive to keep up with. And eventually I studied to be a cultural anthropologist and decided to study games as culture. And that sort of inadvertently led to me working in games.
I guess my first own computer was a PC, 8088 XT. I think the year was about 1989. I was playing Alley Cat, Sopwith, and Space Invaders mostly. After that, I moved on to NES, the original one, and I got a 286, then a 386, and a 486. I guess my first computer after I moved on my own was a Pentium 2 to 350 megahertz. And I got into games actually by being fired at Nokia. I did a 10-year stint at doing mobile phones at Nokia, and after it finally ended, or was forced to end, I went into game dev.
And is there any particular attraction you saw to Kiwi or VRKiwi here that you ended up at this particular place of employment?
I guess
I'll bow to Jaakko, seeing as I think he's one of the founders of Kiwi.
I guess this is a logical place to mention Oulu Game Lab, which was this university-based game development course, which basically everyone who works at Kiwi or VRKiwi actually met for the first time. It kind of gave you the chance to actually develop games in a semi-professional environment. And after doing OGL, Oulu Game Lab, forming our own company was kind of logical way to go forward.
Okay.
Yeah, Oulu Game Lab was kind of weird. I'd worked in the industry for a bit, but things were kind of dry work-wise, so I went through the Game Lab program as well, and eventually ended up teaching there. And the way I ended up in VRKiwi, well, I'd basically given up on games. The industry had sort of treated me a little harshly, and I had health issues, and it was the middle of the pandemic, so I wasn't expecting to get work anywhere. But then out of the blue, Jaakko called me and went like, "Yeah, would you like to be our game designer, maybe?" And well, the rest is history.
Oh, that's good. And I suppose before we continue forward, we should delineate exactly what are McKiwi and VRKiwi specifically. Um,
Well, to put it shortly, McKiwi is the business-to-business site, basically doing web development, and VRKiwi is our VR studio, doing game dev.
okay. And I suppose another question I have is why a Kiwi, especially since I believe you are located in Finland.
Well, that's a long and sad story,
Oh boy.
and it involves traveling to New Zealand and then getting divorced after having a honeymoon there.
Oh.
But anyway, Kiwis are sympathetic creatures, don't you agree?
I guess. I don't think I've ever seen a Kiwi up close. But
They're kind of night creatures, such as game devs usually are.
right. Like
And there's a bit of wordplay there as well. I mean, me obviously is a pronoun in English, but in it is such in Finnish as well, but it actually means we. It means a collective group. So it's a play on words on that sense, and then we have the long tradition of tech companies taking fruit as part of their name. Looking at you, Apple. So
that is a fair assessment. Like, and shifting over to VRKiwi specifically, well, you know, what piqued your interest in the virtual reality in the first place?
I guess it was a situation here in Oulu, the city we live in. There's lots of game dev companies, but everybody's doing mobile. So if you know Fingersoft and such, they are located here as well, like hill climb racing developers. But we wanted to try something different, something more. What's the word for ambition? Having more ambition.
That could work, especially given that, well, these do look like how do I put this? Proper VR games instead of just quote unquote experiences.
Yeah, we went straight to the deep end on this one.
Right. But yeah, mobile games. That's not to say that can't be ambitious, but I think it's safe to say that VR games are a lot more developer intensive than mobile games are typically.
you're putting it very politely, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I've worked in mobile games, and I'd term them as glorified slot machines.
Yes, that is unfortunate. Especially since there are people making real games in the mobile space, but good luck getting attention.
It's really unfortunate how the whole platform and its possibilities has been sort of overtaken by microtransactions and free-to-play gaming.
Yeah, I mean,
I think,
Apple is
yeah,
trying a bit with Apple Arcade, but that can only go so far, especially since that's just one platform.
yeah. I'll throttle myself here a bit. I mean, this is a common topic for ranting for me.
Also, back in 2017, when we were starting game dev, the VR field was relatively new, so there was lots of for us to explore. And I think it kind of paid off. I mean, having our first game be a hit. I mean, a slow hit, but a hit anyway. That's awesome.
A hit is a hit, especially since how do I put this? The VR space has its own difficulties. Probably, I'd say the inverse of the mobile market, like just from a top-down perspective, because there's a lot of creative ambition in the VR space going on right now, but in real terms, the actual market is pretty tiny. And I suppose to junction a question off that, um, has it been hard marketing your games in the VR space, given you know, how few people actually have VR headsets currently?
Well, it was fairly easy to do when we were starting out because we didn't have a marketing team and neither did we have a marketing budget, so no worries there. Basically, everything we had came like organically.
Okay.
I mean, we found out that streamers like to stream the game for some reason, and I think we're currently at like 45 million views all in all for CD1. So that was kind of a surprising but a nice bonus for us. But yeah, like you say, the market is relatively small compared to mobile and even PC market. But it has its upsides and downsides. Upside is that it's also easier to be unique in the market you're in.
Yeah, I mean, the mobile market is completely flooded, so you have to go somewhere else.
Right, and I think the VR market needs, again, let's say, true believers. People who want to be in this space. Um, I won't say that there's no like investment going on here, especially with Facebook/Meta believing in the platform so much that they changed their name around it. But you know, a lot of the actual development of games is not being done at like AAA studios, for example. Unless you're, I guess, Valve. So there needs to be passionate people making VR games in order for the VR landscape to chug forward.
Yeah, I think that's one of the appeals. Definitely, there's still room to form the landscape and affect it before the giants come and stomp on everything.
Indeed. And I guess getting into the games themselves, your first game, was this your first like game period, or just your first like developed title in Cave Diggers VR?
VRKiwi had actually we had done some mobile games before, but that was it. So this was our first actual game, as I like to say. And we started off really small. It was just a couple of people involved, me, another coder, and then one art director. Everything else was like outsourced, and yeah, we kind of grew. We kind of grown from that. We currently have like 15 people employed just for the VRKiwi studio side.
Okay. Which is, I'm not sure how sizable that is for something in terms of VR, but we've had smaller teams, let's say. But that aside, Cave Digger VR. Did you specifically set out to create a game based around a cave digger, or is that something that just happened during like prototyping?
Yeah, I think we had the right idea starting from the scratch from the beginning. I mean, our producer likes shiny things. He likes collecting shiny things. It kind of grew. Everything grew from that one.
Okay. And like, are you specifically a miner, or are like you trying to rescue someone here?
Well, yeah, the game is situated in this Weird West tavern that
Mhm.
you can expand into a frontier town, and you go down this elevator shaft and collect riches and relics and buy new tools. I mean, it's a very simple gameplay loop. You basically go down into the mines, get some loot, buy more tools to be more efficient at mining. And we were kind of confident that we could make this simple gameplay loop work.
Right. And are there any sort of hazards you have to worry about?
There's no combat in the first Cave Digger, so it's relatively family friendly.
Right. Though, do you have to worry about, say, cave-ins or methane gas, or like, is there an oxygen meter?
Well, after the first expansion, we added some another modes of gameplay because some people didn't like the timed element of going down with the elevator. There's like 70 seconds per floor, and there's 3 floors every run, so it's a relatively quick and simple loop. But some people preferred free roaming gameplay, so we added this train expansion where you can ride a miniature train into the dungeons and go free form exploring. And there are some actual dangers there.
I'm assuming it's going to involve falling rocks.
Well, that's a safe assumption. There's also some dangerous gas
Yeah, that.
exposures.
Yeah. Do you have a canary in the game?
No, but you do have a living chest mimic who follows you around. Her name is Chompy.
Is he made out of sapient pear wood?
Most likely.
Duly noted. And what sort of, like, are you collecting just jewels, or is there, like, say, coal and steel and gold around as well?
You collect different kinds of loots, which basically are transformed into money, which you can use to upgrade the town and buy more efficient tools. But also you can find clues and different hints regarding these endings. That's one of the big feature of Cave Digger 1. In the end, we ended up having like 8 different endings, like parallel endings that you can achieve. Some are hidden and some are fairly easy to find, but they don't cause a game over for the player. So you can complete one ending and continue on to the other one. And this was one feature that the people that our player base really liked. So we are included that for Cave Digger 2 as well.
And like, how big is the cave, and how far down can you go?
Well, for the elevator, there's 3 levels, so that's fairly compact. But for the train update, we kind of went wild and did 4 different biomes that you can proceed into unlocking. So that would be like at least like 20-30 hours of exploration there.
And let me see. So you mentioned an expansion not too long ago. Like, how many expansions did Cave Digger get?
Well, it's a funny story actually. First of all, the first thing we released on Steam was a game called Cave Digger. I mean, it was a free game, a demo, if you will. It got like 100,000 downloads, but Steam, when we actually released the commercial DLC, basically nobody bought it, and it looked for a while that was it. Until we were approached by Facebook, and they wanted to have the game for Oculus Quest as well. And they gave us a nice budget, and we got the chance to do the train expansion, which was basically a game of its own. So I've always called it Cave Digger 2, and what we're actually doing now is Cave Digger 3. But that's very much unofficial naming there.
And what platforms did Cave Digger release on besides Steam? Like, did this end up on the Oculus Quest, PlayStation VR, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we pretty much went everywhere we could get. Like, we ended up on like 7 or 8 VR platforms, and then when we did the flat version, we ended up on like 4, 5 flat platforms. But yeah, PC VR, PSVR, and Oculus Quest were the biggest ones for the VR version. And
That
we
is,
actually did some fairly obscure Chinese headsets as well, like the Pico Neo 2 and the Nolo.
I'm
I
guessing
think
the
I
HTC Vive was in there as well.
oh yeah, we are on whiteboard as well.
And do you have a preference in terms of VR headsets?
Well, personally, I like the simplicity of Quest. I mean, it's easy to transport and it's easy to demo to people. What do you think, Ari-Matti?
I haven't tried enough different headsets to have formed an opinion. The Quest seems nice. Yeah, it has the accessibility. Uh, going back to the VR market being currently small, I think everybody's waiting for the NES surge. Every Christmas present, every kid getting a VR headset as a Christmas present, and I think the Quest is probably the closest we've got to that so far. But I honestly don't have a favorite. They're all VR hats.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yes. Moving on. Your second game is Art Pulse, which is radically different, if nothing else, to what you've developed or even published. And like, what is this? A rhythm game?
Yeah, it's kind of if you combine Beat Saber to Tilt Brush, it's like this rhythmic drawing game that you can select songs and you draw shapes to activate different instruments in the songs. It's a fairly chill game. We did this as a like break between bigger games.
And um, does it have like a music library to draw from? Can you add your own music to this thing, or is it a
Yeah,
preset
it's got
amount of songs?
its own preset library of about 15 songs, I think.
I don't know, what are those PlayStation moves?
Yeah, I think the trailer was filmed with the PSVR. But
That's what I thought.
we
I'm
released this
like,
on Steam and PSVR.
and how did this game fare?
Not really well. I mean, we already knew this was a one chance in a million for actually this to go viral. But it was nice, like a snack to do between like real games.
I mean, sometimes that's necessary.
Yeah,
Just
you sometimes need to clear the palette,
yeah, and
do
I
something
suppose
totally different.
oh, I mean, if you had the opportunity to do an Art Pulse 2, would you be game for that?
Well, I guess I could do it. We could do it between KVDKs 2 and 3. It's nice to experiment on VR at least.
Yep. Um, right. Before shifting on to your current project, I think we should give a bit of lip service to your publishing arm because you have also um, put out Crystal Raiders VR, VR Pigeons, and Time Control VR. Um, so I suppose my first question here is, what do you look for in a external VR game? What attracts you to want to put something on the market?
Well, there's got to be something unique to catch your eye. Are there some original gameplay mechanic, or if it's the art style, something to separate the game from the masses. That's what you look for.
And from what I've heard from the guys on the publishing side, a solid pitch deck does quite a lot of work for you if you're looking for a publisher.
That does help.
Hmm. And because, like in the case of VR Pigeons, was the uniqueness having pigeons in VR.
Yeah, I mean, one charm of VR is that it makes you look like an absolute fool, and having a game where you're a pigeon and you move by pecking, moving your head, is the ultimate silliness.
Yeah. Though some would very much dispute this, like in the VR space, like, but that is a conversation for another time, I think. Because anyway, shifting to I suppose the present, because I believe this is the game you are actively working on, but Cave Digger 2, Dig Harder. Boy, Die Hard 2 had a lot of influence, didn't it?
You have no idea.
But anyway, so Cave Diggers 2, or Cave Digger 2, well, I suppose the obvious question to ask is, what are you doing new or different in the sequel here?
Ari-Matti, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I was about to ask, should I take this? Yeah, I don't think I mentioned it earlier. I wasn't part of the first Cave Digger team. I wasn't part of the team back when the guys did Cave Digger 1. And Cave Digger 2 is a lot larger, and I think Jaakko described the organic method of building a game that they used back then. Cave Digger 2 is actually designed. There's a narrative. There's more sense to what you're doing. It's less of an arcade exploration and more of a, well, it's still arcade and there's still exploration, but maybe we explain some things that happen on the way. There's a lot more sort of solid world building that we strive to communicate to the player. And while we keep a lot of the things from the first Cave Digger, they're reorganized and repackaged and maybe polished quite a bit. And we add features. Jaakko mentioned that the first Cave Digger doesn't have combat. The second Cave Digger features it quite heavily. Actually, surprisingly heavily. I did a Twitch stream yesterday. If you want to see a game designer exploring his own creation, that might be a good thing to check out. But there's a lot. There's a considerable what would be the word, proliferation of features when compared to the first game.
Okay. And in terms of what's being kept from the first Cave Raiders game, is that just related to mechanics, or is there any sort, like, are you playing the same Cave Digger that you did in the first game, for example?
No. There's narratively there's very little, but structurally there's a bunch of nods and homages, I suppose. We still have an elevator. We still have 3 stops on the elevator. This time they're actual cave levels that you get to explore. We still have a pickaxe. We still have dynamite. I mean, there's things that you can't sort of drop if you're making an arcade cave mining game. But well, let's say the pieces, some of the pieces are the same, but we've reorganized them and built a bigger castle.
Uh-huh. And we've talked about combat quite a bit, but how is that actually going to work in Cave Digger 2?
Well, you have a cave, and there's monsters in the cave, and then you have a revolver, and you hope that your gun slinging skills are greater than the monster's plasma slinging skills in the case. As the case may be.
Something bullet plus monster equals death.
Well,
Pretty much, yeah.
that is actually an important. important designation because that means it's ranged combat as opposed to using your pickaxe to the monster's head or using the dynamite to explode monsters. Though I suppose that also begs the question: can you use those tools against what you find in the caves that happen to be fleshy?
Yes, you can. We're still working on making melee combat sort of feel good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder. Revolvers are they just sort of automatically feel good. It just works. It's
It's
easy.
tricky to do melee without any physical feedback.
Yeah, and well, we get haptics. We do have haptics in VR controllers, but it's not enough. It's hard to
Yeah, it
make
doesn't
it
stop
make
you
it
from
feel good.
following through when you hit something.
Yeah, yeah. But yes, we basically designed all of the tools that we have to have some sort of a combat use at some point of their upgrade cycle. Even the sort of radar thingy that you use to find your way in the caves. I've been arguing that we need to include a death ray.
Right. And is it one-on-one combat, or do you have to worry about multiple foes at points?
I think I had 7 or 8 large dog-sized nautiloid things on me yesterday, so multiple foes. Of course, there's a learning curve, and we don't throw you into a cave full of monsters instantly when you log into the game, but it'll be multiple foes and sort of mass combat eventually, which is also an interesting element when you add in the fact that we have multiplayer support in the game, so you can have you and up to 3 of your buddies fighting all of these creatures in the mines.
And
So also the multiplayer is cross-play, so you can play between PSVR, PCVR, and Quest.
neat. Is it using Unreal or Epic Online, or is it using Unity?
We are using Unity with Photon multiplayer components.
Okay. And how much bigger is this looking to be compared to the first game?
Well, for the budget and the time scope, I think it's about 5 times. I mean, we're already like year and a half into the development. We started it in October 2020. Did 1 month of pre-prod and then went full steam ahead. And we are, let's say we're on the home stretch. We are targeting Q3 this year for the full release on all the 3 platforms. But yeah, this is the biggest VR production in Finland like ever.
And are you looking to launch this in early access first, or is it going to be like straight to completed release?
We have actually launched already into early access. So
Okay.
you can get the game on Steam for like $10 on early access, and also on Quest App Lab for the same price.
And is that pricing will that increase when it goes into 1.0?
Yeah, naturally.
I'm not unexpected.
Yeah.
And in terms of PlayStation VR, I know. Well, it's all in a bit of flux, isn't it? Like, so I suppose my question is, do you plan on releasing Cave Diggers 2 on the next gen, current gen PlayStation 5 VR or PlayStation VR, or would you still like release it for the current VR?
I think we'll be doing both. We are actually in the process of getting dev kits for the PSVR 2 currently.
Well, good luck to you there.
Yeah.
And let's see. After you're done with Cave Digger 2, are you looking to have, expansions like you did the first one?
We haven't really planned for any like official expansions. We'll be expanding the actual game, I think. we're gonna have a proper at least 6 to 12 months of support and adding some more content into that one. Because even though we have lots of time and budget on our hands, we have had to cut some things, which I would like to add post-release.
And let's see, I think that's about it. Oh, I suppose my final question is: have you started looking into what you will be doing, post Cave Digger 2 that might not be Cave Digger 3 or Art Pulse 2, like anything sort of original?
Well, there is one original IP which we are bringing into pre-production in a few months. I don't really have the ability to talk about it a lot, but let's just say Lost Ops.
Really, you're just gonna leak the title for our pre-production title that we haven't even brought into pre-production yet?
Uh-oh.
You heard it here first.
Well, it's a working title anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, that is important to note, so such things can change. Anyway, I'll see if my colleagues here have any questions for you.
I think I'm good. It looks interesting, though I'm not really much of a VR person myself.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for being here today and talking to us about your games. Like I said, none of us currently have VR gear, but the Cave Digger series looks pretty neat for VR titles. And if you wish to pick up not just the Cave Digger games or Art Pulse, but any of their externally published works, you can get them on Steam VR, Oculus Store, and PlayStation VR, depending on the title. So maybe we'll have you back on when your next project is ready to be talked about.
Yeah, sure. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Indeed. Right. So yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. As always, be sure to join us next time for the Sunday reviews. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.